This week's book is a parable.
It highlights the transformation of a camel boy to a successful salesman.
But how did he do it?
He studied 10 ancient scrolls.
And diligently applied their principles.
One of them is, I will form good habits and become their slave.
Greet each day with love in your heart.
I will persist until I succeed.
I am nature's greatest miracle.
Live each day as if it were my last.
Today, I will be the master of my emotions.
I will laugh at the world.
I will multiply my value 100-fold.
I will act now.
And I will pray for guidance.
Let's jump right into Mandino's book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. Welcome back. You're listening to Motivation Minute, where we unravel the timeless truths in that stack of books you've been wanting to read so that you don't have to. And this week's book is The Greatest Salesman in the World by Mandino, brought up by a very good friend of Jiraiya's, actually cousin of Jiraiya's. Even cooler than that.
That's right.
Welcome to the show, Japheth Mast.
Thank you. Here I am.
What's up, Japheth? Yeah, it's been way too long. So we have a lot of Japheth and I have a lot of history going back. First of all, we're cousins. We grew up right next to each other. Had a lot of fun times growing up. Grew up Amish. Funny enough, about 2 years ago, right before we decided, or not too long before Spencer and I started the podcast, Japheth and I were going to start a podcast, and we'd actually planned it and everything. It just wasn't the right timing, but Japheth was actually a lot of the inspiration for me as well for why we started the podcast originally than Spencer and I. So, and I can't believe we haven't had you on sooner, but
yeah, I know.
But it's cool that we finally have you on today. But yeah, it's good to have you, bro.
Yeah, it's good to be on here with you guys. I've been wanting to do it for a while, but glad we can make it happen today.
So, Japheth, you brought up this book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. How has this impacted you? Like, what made it an inspiration to you?
Yeah, so my uncle Joas, a year or two ago, recommended it to me as just a really pivotal book for him and just in his life and business. And so I picked it up and just really impacted me. Like, I love the story in it. It's told in kind of parable form, set in kind of like 50 to 70 AD, kind of in Bible times. And it's a great story, but it's just the way it's told, the way the principles are taught. It's just really easy to follow. It's inspirational and it's just really like sound like principles, not like anything.
A lot of the principles are from the Bible, kind of, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Very similar concepts. The way it approached it was that one thing I liked that the book said initially was true wealth is of the heart, not of the purse, which is a really interesting thing because we usually think of wealth as it's actual riches, but it's not all riches. There's more to it. You can be wealthy in your heart, but dirt poor, in a monetary sense. And I think we underappreciate that fact that you can be wealthy in that way.
For sure. I think that's kind of what drew me to this book. It's not just focused on like external like principles, but it's focused on like who you are and like transforming yourself. And then you become wealthy inside, and as we know, like whatever is on the inside will come out on the outside.
Right.
And so that's kind of, I think, part of what drew me to this and why I like the book so much.
That's so cool. It's like rather than just like you said, rather than trying to do things externally and pretend or fake it or try to do like traditional forms of sales, it's like taking a new approach. Is more about like the heart, or like a big thing he talked about was like love and like truly loving people. But how does that work? Like loving people and how that relates to sales ultimately.
Well, I think most of us can smell a phony, and if a salesman is just there to try to sell us something, just for the sake of a sale, we can smell that. And so what this teaches is that you actually need to have a heart for who you're selling to. You actually need to care for them. You need to actually love for them, and as maybe as like as funny as that sounds in this context, that really it's incredible, because when your heart is right towards someone, you're not just trying to get something from them, but you're actually caring for them. And everybody can feel that.
And that's powerful when you can approach like the relationships that way. It's also powerful to approach the day with love in your heart, which was one of the rules that I really liked. Saying that, appreciate the very little aspects of your day, the littlest things you see in people or in the world around you. And when you stop to appreciate them, it helps push all the negatives away that are seeking to mire you. I was just thinking this morning, usually I rush off to work at 6:30 in the morning, but this morning I got out to the car and there was this gorgeous sunrise. And I just stood there looking at it. I'm like, usually I'm in the car and I'm off to the races right away. But to actually sit there and appreciate, like, I'm not going to work yet. I don't have to start clocking my hours yet. I could just wait here and watch the sunrise. It's like, it makes you feel human and makes you appreciate those little things, and it gives you a good mood for the rest of the day.
So it's about like taking breaks. He talked about like not always being like in that state of like forcing something, but like taking it, like stepping back and taking it slow, kind of, when it comes to like, even when it comes to sales.
Yeah, because one of the rules that he brought up was that you're going to master your emotions to be successful. And that was where like your mood directly impacts your productivity. So if you're not in the right mood, you're not going to be productive. So if you can handle emotionally things right and be cognizant of that so that you're always in the right place emotionally where possible, then you have a better chance of success in a day.
Yeah. If you're really depressed or you're sad or you're just not having a great day, like you're not going to have any fun, you're not going to do much selling, and your customers aren't going to like you a lot.
Right.
So it's all about like managing your emotions, your internal world, to not let your feelings dictate you, but actually to let your will be master over your emotions and let that guide you.
Because it said that the true love isn't a feeling, but like an actual act, or like how is that where apparently to love something, you actually have to put in work or do something, right?
Yeah, like love has to be shown in some way. It's not just something you say, but it has to be experienced.
Right. And sometimes like we might not even have that feeling of love or whatever, but like do it through demonstrating it through our actions of how of actually showing something or doing something for someone, showing them that we really care. I guess that's like, it shows them, if they can see that we really care about them, that's going to ultimately build trust, and like obviously going to be way more effective at selling ultimately if people can tell that you're real, and I know that's like one of your biggest messages, Japheth, is like them, like you have on your website, like a movement for authenticity, like, and that's like so extremely important. Like even when it comes to sales, we normally think of salesmen as like sleazy people, and sometimes they are. Like, we all get like the telemarketer calls, but and they never work because they're so fake. Like, couldn't they at least try to be real in those calls? Like, I don't know.
I love that, and I also love that it's not something that you can fake. Like you can't fake liking someone. Like everybody can see through that. You have to actually care. It has to come from a real place inside your heart. And if you have that real thing in your heart, that real place of love, then that shows who you are, and it shows everybody that you talk to, everybody that you interact with, that you're the real deal. You're there for them. You're not just doing this to make yourself happy or make yourself rich.
Part of showing you care is not hiding who you are, just being yourself. The book brought up this rule, I am nature's greatest miracle. And it was about like, don't hide your personality. If you have something that's unique about you, put it on display, because that makes you authentic. That makes it's like who you are. It's your asset. Make it your selling point, who you are. Even though it's like unique to you, you might downplay it because nobody else is that way and you're trying to imitate everyone else. That's actually super cool to have that part to you.
Yeah, and we're all super different and super unique, and if once we can fully learn to just be ourselves and to enjoy ourselves, to like ourselves, then other people can't help but like us too.
Wow.
Right.
So when they see that you're coming from a place of like not need of like, are you trying to please them or trying to be fake, but when you actually believe in yourself and believe in your product and honestly are trying to help them positively, like if we could actually do that and believe that, like that could be huge for sales, like, or anything obviously, but that's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
Japheth, what's your top idea from these scrolls that were brought up?
Ooh, that's tough. I'll settle with the last one, where he talks about praying for guidance. I think we all come to points where we just get to the end of ourselves and we're like, man, I don't have it in me to keep going, and that's when we need to reach out and humble ourselves and just ask for help from friends, from God, from family.
Wow.
That's interesting because a lot of these points are about like taking control of yourself and like being in charge, and that last one about prayer is like suddenly being vulnerable. Is like the opposite of all these others that adds like a different dimension to it.
Right. You can't ask for help and be arrogant at the same time.
Right. It doesn't work.
It takes a level of humility and vulnerability, and I think just that like heart posture of not having all the answers is really attractive, and that will bring a lot of good things your way.
Interesting. I think I like the part where it talked about and controlling your emotions, and it's interesting. It's like this book also has like kind of like the two sides of the coin, like in different ways. But like I think from the book it said, like control your emotions, recognize them as they arise, and use your thoughts and actions to balance them. When you're angry, find compassion. When you're sad, remember a joke. When you're self-conscious, speak up, and so on. Like basically sometimes we need to like do the opposite of what we feel if it's a negative thing, we need to
That's interesting you said recognize them as they arise, because that's how you combat the emotionless side. Because if you start to recognize it for what it is, then you realize it's there, and then you can do the right thing with it.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's kind of whole thing of like what is truth, and are my feelings in line with that truth, and if they're not, then what I need to do to get that to line up. But if they are, like, hey, heck yes.
Right. Yeah, but I feel like for a lot of us, for me, like they aren't, my feelings aren't aligned with truth a lot of times. Like that's the hard part is like, if I'm feeling super self-conscious in a situation, like I shouldn't just be like, oh, that's me. I'll just be self-conscious and not speak up. I need to actually like speak up even though I don't feel like it, or like how do we in the sense of not controlling our emotions as in like stuffing them down, but like being aware of them, or like doing the thing that, like you said, like you were saying, if our emotions align with the truth, or what is the right thing, or what's the loving thing to do, rather than just what do we feel like to do, or like I don't know how we get to that place.
Yeah, that's a big discussion. Could do a bunch of podcasts just on this.
Yeah.
Maybe a few quick things like
it
starts with I think recognizing that feelings are okay and giving your heart permission to feel. Recognizing that not everything you feel will be true, but not necessarily running from those, negative or bad feelings. And it's really a process. It takes quite a bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely running away from your feelings and pretending that they're not there is a recipe for disaster. So one way to look at feelings, think of a car and think of your feelings as kids. You don't want to let your kids drive the car, but you also don't want to lock them in the trunk. You put them in the back seat.
That is
you
so
put them
good.
in the back seat and buckle them in.
Yeah, they're still there. They're still making noise. You can feel them, but they're not controlling you. They're not driving the car. That is so good.
Sometimes it'd be nice to just lock them in the trunk, but
yeah, exactly. Okay, so my number one takeaway from the whole book was, I think, the first rule, which was, I will persist until I succeed. And here's why. So the book brought up how, like, think about how obstacles are detours. Obstacles are detours. They're not complete roadblocks. And that's interesting because if you think of an obstacle as a detour, they're a way to build experience. And you think about how, like, mariners at sea, they build skill and stamina with each storm they face. They have never faced a storm like this one they're facing tonight, but they build the skill from facing it. It's a new challenge every night. And the book was saying that failure will never overtake you if your desire to succeed is strong enough.
Dang.
Dry, do you have any stories to share on that from your life?
Well, I kind of do, I guess. Like, that's kind of what's driven me to do what I do with my business, and just it was over the last couple of years. I mean, I had that extreme desire to do something great, to do something that's accomplish something, and to feel that accomplishment, and to, like, I don't know what all drove me to do that exactly. Still learning that, but part of it, I think, was a positive thing of having a desire to succeed. And not that I've succeeded, but, like, having that, like, it doesn't matter what happens. Like, it doesn't matter what obstacles I face. Like, giving up isn't an option. Like,
yeah,
it just isn't an option, and that's kind of what's kept me going, I think, and it sounds cliche, but it's so true that the people who win are the ones that never give up. You basically, eventually your obstacles break if you don't,
Persisting is the hardest thing. Like, I had an internship where I had to solve a software problem where I was connecting a calendar to some code, and it was kind of complicated. Like, I tried to connect it over and over and over, and it wasn't working. And I went to look at forums to see how to connect it, and they sort of helped, and I tried them. They didn't work. Anyway, I kept persisting for a couple weeks, never figured it out, went with a workaround that ended up breaking later. So the next year, I come back, I'm like, I'm going to persist this time. So I went to the exact same web pages I'd gone to for help before. I went to the exact same forum posts, tried the exact same things again, but this time paid attention to the details and persisted through the errors I was seeing to figure out exactly why this was happening. And I had breakthrough. And that was huge just because I persisted.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you do in life is building your character, whether it's a win or a loss. And even if it's a loss, even if you're not succeeding, that gives you another bit of character, so that next time you face that same thing or something bigger, you'll have a foundation to sustain you in that.
Yeah.
Japheth, do you have any story about persistence in your life and how that's affected you?
I would say one example is with my photography business. I started it when I was 18, which is about 3.5 years ago. There was definitely a lot of points in the past couple of years where I wanted to just kind of give up on it and just give up on photography or in business, just because I wasn't seeing a lot of success, wasn't always having the most fun with it, didn't have a whole lot of vision for it. But I just kind of stuck it out, kind of when it was hard or when I wasn't making any money, just kind of stuck it out, and I'm really thankful that I did that. It's caused me to grow a ton, build a lot of beautiful relationships, and if I would have given up, like, who knows what would have happened.
Wow, I can attest to that. I remember when you actually started your business before I started mine. You were always kind of an inspiration, but, like, I remember you started your photography business, like, was 2014 or something, and it's amazing how much you've grown since then, just how consistent you've been over the years. And I think this is a good place to kind of wrap it up. You mentioned it's your photography business, and I have to say, if any of people listening want some amazing like portrait photography or family photography or really anything, like, Japheth is definitely the guy to do it.
He's your guy. He is really good.
Check out his website, japhethmastphoto.com, right, Japheth?
Yes, sir.
And
probably want to tell him how to spell my name.
Right, Japheth, JAPHETH MAST for Mast, and japhethmastphoto.com. It's pretty awesome. Got some pretty awesome pictures on there. And if you live in the Reading area, make sure to contact Japheth about getting
Reading,
some awesome
California.
pictures.
How can people reach you on social media, Japheth?
Yeah, so Instagram is a great place. Find me just at Japheth Mast. My website, japhethmast.com. Get on there, read my blogs, get on my email list, and yeah, that's about it. I'm on Facebook as well, but those two work.
So you have you're on Instagram, and then you have your website, just japhethmast.com, and that's like your blog.
I guess I have two websites.
That's your blog. You can learn more about Japheth there, and then your Japheth Mast photo for photography. So
yeah,
cool.
That's right.
Hey, well, it was awesome to have you join us, Japheth, and thanks for the great recommendation of the greatest salesman in the world. This was fun.
Yeah, it's fun to be on. Thanks for having me, guys. It was a blast.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in for another week of Motivation Minute. And we hope you liked this book. If you did, we hope you'll tap subscribe so that you don't miss any of the future episodes coming out. And trust me, we have some really interesting books coming up soon this month. So stay tuned for those. We always love your feedback. We'd love to hear the books you want us to feature. So if you have ideas, send them into the Motivation Minute survey. Go to our website, motivationminute.com, tap survey, and we'd love to hear them there. We will look forward to seeing you another week for the next book.